Here are 10 albums that seem to foreshadow the future. I'm John Bowden. This is Rock History Book. Before we get started, remember to subscribe to our channel, and if you want early access to our videos, join our Patreon. All the links are in the description. If you want to make a PayPal donation, help out the channel, it's right there waiting for you. Number 10, King Crimson in the Court of the Crimson King from 1969. Considered a pioneering progressive rock album, it includes the influential track 21st Century Schizoid Man. Cover with its unsettling imagery has been seen by some as prophetic of the anxieties and upheavals that followed in subsequent decades. Barry Godber, who passed away in 1970, was a computer programmer friend of King Crimson lyricist Peter Sinfield, and he painted the design for the cover. In fact, he used his own face. Godber would pass away shortly after the album's release, and it would be his only album cover. King Crimson leader Robert Fripp actually owns the original. The face on the outside of the album is the Schizoid Man, hence the song 21st Century Schizoid Man. And on the inside, it's the Crimson King. If you cover the smiling face, the eyes reveal an incredible sadness, and it reflects the music. And that schizophrenic 21st Century Man seems to be in despair on the cover of that album. 21st Century Schizoid Man is a commentary on war and criticism of politicians who start and wage wars. The song basically predicts the 21st century mentality where it seems we are trying to kill the planet. Number 9, U2 and War from 1983. The album's really been considered prophetic in its exploration of global conflict, political unrest, and human rights issues, which would resonate deeply in the years following its release. A lot of the aspects of the album's themes and messages can be seen as forward-looking, anticipating events and struggles that defined the 1980s and beyond. Of course, the title War itself suggests a broad exploration of conflict. The early 1980s were marked by Cold War tensions between the US and the Soviet Union, and U2 captured that atmosphere of anxiety and global uncertainty. The band's focus on political themes seemed to anticipate an era of heightened political struggles and military conflicts, like the Falkland War in 1982, the rising tensions in Northern Ireland, and growing concerns over nuclear proliferation. Sunday Bloody Sunday is arguably the most overtly political track on the album, addressing the Bloody Sunday Massacre of 1972 in Derry, North Ireland, when British soldiers shot unarmed civil rights protesters. The song doesn't just reflect on that specific event, but broadly on the ongoing violence in Northern Ireland, known as the Troubles. The album's more emotional, introspective tracks also seem prophetic on how they capture the psychological toll of war. Seconds, for example, touches on the fear of nuclear war, and its chorus, "It takes a second to say goodbye," speaks to the suddenness of devastation. Number 8, R.E.M. and Document from 1987. This politically charged album includes the hit "It's the End of the World as We Know It" and "I Feel Fine," reflecting on the social and political turmoil of the 1980s. The cover art, with its dystopian themes, has been interpreted as a commentary on media and global conflict. There's interesting themes on the album. Track 1, Finest Work Song. What we want and what we need has been confused. Welcome to the Occupation, for instance. Listen to the Congress, where we propagate confusion. On Disturbance at the Heron House, the followers of chaos out of control. The song Strange, there's something going on that's not quite right. On the track King of Birds, Everybody Hit the Ground. Number 7, in Prince, 1999. Not what most people think it's about. It featured the title song, which was a hit, and Little Red Corvette. The album really solidified Prince's place in pop history. The title track also became an anthem for the turn of the millennium, famously urging people to party like it's 1999. But Prince was actually singing about a doomsday prophecy buried in that funk bass line. Prince was writing during the height of the Cold War, and 1999 is a very poignant party jam that addresses fears of nuclear Armageddon. Even the lyric, "I was dreaming when I wrote this song." Number 6, The Beatles and Abbey Road, a classic album featuring the tracks Come Together and Something, and of course known as one of the Beatles' best albums. But the cover became a centerpiece for that Paul is Dead conspiracy, and the album supposedly had clues. Did Paul McCartney die? Of course not. But for Abbey Road, there was a student called Fred Laborde. He came up with the theory that the Beatles walking across the zebra crossing represented a funeral procession. John as the preacher, Ringo as the undertaker, George the gravedigger, and Paul, being barefoot, was walking to his own funeral. Abbey Road is probably one of the most famous cover conspiracies. Supposedly, Paul died in a 1966 car crash and was secretly replaced by a lookalike. Supposedly, the band's manager decided to cover up his death. And the conspiracy states that the band felt bad about covering up his death and decided to give clues on that famous 1969 Abbey Road album. And again, their outfits on the cover represents their respective roles. The white Beetle in the background with the registration number LMW28IF, 28 being the age conspiracy theorists thought that Paul would have been if he hadn't died. In fact, Paul was 27 when Abbey Road was released. Also, there were things like Paul is left-handed, and on the cover, he's holding a cigarette with his right hand. Number 5, John Lennon and Yoko Ono with Double Fantasy, released in 1980. This was an album that was released weeks before John Lennon's assassination on December 8, 1980. The album featured Starting Over and was a comeback for John Lennon. The peaceful cover image starkly contrasts the tragic events that would follow. The cover depicts him kissing Yoko Ono. The record title is not simply a reference to the two of them working together. John revealed the name has a very spiritual meaning. Double Fantasy was inspired by John's view of prayer. In 1980, as John vacationed in Bermuda, the whole process picked speed. It was supposed to be an EP, ended up being an album. Yoko says, we were both jotting down ideas for songs. John came up with 2 great songs, so I said, why don't we put out an EP? John responds, you mean we're going to record again? According to Yoko, John started creating a lot of songs. Then it was an LP. John liked the fact that it was a man-to-woman dialogue going back and forth. In Bermuda, John saw a sign that said Double Fantasy in the town's flower garden. It was the name of a flower. In one of his last interviews, John Lennon explained the meaning of the album, saying, the consciousness is, let's see what we shall pray for together. Let's make it stronger by picturing the same image, projecting the same image. And that's the secret, he said. Number 4, The Eagles and Hotel California, released in 1976. It's sometimes viewed as a prophetic album in its explorations of themes like excess, disillusionment, and the darker side of the American dream, which would become more pronounced in the years following. The album's artwork and lyrics together offer a critique of the lifestyle and cultural shifts happening in the 1970s, many that would manifest even more starkly in the 1980s. The album cover depicts the Beverly Hills Hotel at sunset, bathed in a golden glow. While it might seem a glamorous representation of California, the image hints at something darker lurking beneath the surface. Ominous, almost ghostly atmosphere of the photo foreshadows the central theme of the album, the seductive yet ultimately corrupting allure of success and excess. The hotel imagery represents the idea of a luxurious paradise that, once entered, is difficult if not impossible to leave. This speaks to the era's growing obsession with wealth, fame, and indulgence, which would become even more entrenched during the 1980s and, of course, with the social media era, all too important to a lot of teens. The title track, Hotel California, captures the album's prophetic themes, describing a luxurious, almost dreamlike hotel that, despite its appeal, traps its visitors in a nightmarish sight. The famous line, you can check out anytime you like, but you can never leave. It's often interpreted as a warning about the dangers of excess and addiction, themes that would become tragically relevant in the lives of a lot of musicians and celebrities in the years to come. Others, like Life in the Fast Lane, warn of consequences of living a reckless life and indulging in hedonism. There were bizarre theories that Hotel California is about Satanism, which it is not. Number 3, Supertramp and Breakfast in America from 1979, their biggest album. It's often regarded as prophetic for its portrayal of American culture and the band's subtle critiques of societal trends. It was released during a time of political and economic uncertainty in the US. The album's artwork and lyrics seem to anticipate some of the cultural and ideological shifts that would take place in years to come. Some of the hits on the album, the logical song, Take the Long Way Home, and Goodbye Stranger. The album's cover depicted New York City, and some people looked at the Twin Towers and thought it predicted the 9/11 attacks. The cover is actually a humorous depiction of New York City, seen from an airplane window, with a waitress standing in for the Statue of Liberty, holding a glass of orange juice instead of a torch. The background is filled with buildings made from kitchen items, like coffee cups and plates, symbolizing a consumerist take on the American dream. Some say a satirical view of America's excesses and materialism. Songs like the Logical Song are considered prophetic in their exploration of identity and the loss of individuality in a modern, fast-paced world. Songs' themes of education and conformity feel ahead of its time, echoing concerns about personal fulfillment and self-awareness that would become more prominent in the following decades. The track Gone Hollywood explores disillusionment with fame and the entertainment industry. Number 2, The Who and their album Who Are You from 1978. The record holds an eerie and prophetic significance due to the untimely death of drummer Keith Moon, died shortly after its release. The album came out on August 18, 1978. Just a few weeks later, September 7, 1978, Moon died of an overdose. This tragic death lent an almost supernatural weight to certain aspects of the album's cover and themes. One of the most tragic details is an image of Keith Moon on the album cover. He's seated in a chair that prominently features the words "not to be taken away" on its back. Of course, in retrospect, this feels like a cryptic warning or premonition of his imminent death. Moon, known for his erratic behavior and struggles with substance abuse, had been living dangerously for a lot of years, and the chair seemingly symbolizes his fragility, despite its practical purpose, of course, in the photo shoot. The phrase "not to be taken away" resonates deeply in the light of his death, of course creating an unintentional but powerful connection between the artwork and his fate. The album's title track, Who Are You, adds another layer of prophetic significance. The song's lyrics deal with existential questions of identity and purpose, themes that seem even more poignant in the wake of Moon's death. His struggles with addiction and declining health were well known, and his chaotic lifestyle mirrored the uncertainties expressed in the song. At number 1, Lynyrd Skynyrd's Street Survivors, released in 1977, was eerily prophetic due to the tragic events that followed its release. Just 3 days after the album came out, on October 20th, 1977, plane carrying the band crashed in Mississippi, killing lead singer Ronnie Van Zant, guitarist Steve Gaines, backup singer Cassie Gaines, and 3 others. The plane crash seems to mirror the ominous tone of the album cover, which originally depicted the band standing amid flames. The cover was quickly changed after the plane crash, out of respect for those who died. The album title Street Survivors now feels haunting in its hindsight, given that some of the members of the band literally survived it. The survivors, Gary Rosington, Alan Collins, Artemis Prime, and others. Some of them went on to reform the band years later. Songs like That Smell, which warned of the dangers of excess and reckless living, also carried a prophetic weight, written by Van Zant about the struggles with substance abuse within the band. The lyrics, "The smells of death surround you," felt tragically relevant after the plane crash, easily highlighting the dangers they were living at the time. The prophetic nature of Street Survivors underscores the band's place in rock history, symbolizing both their incredible rise and the tragedy that would come to at least partly define their legacy. There you have it. Some of them are a little silly, but conspiracy theorists have had fun with these throughout the years. Remember, if you want to donate to the channel, there's a PayPal link at the very top of the description. You can join our Patreon, you'll get early access to all our videos. And go to our swag store, you'll be able to buy a t-shirt, a cap, all kinds of clothing with our logo on it. And it helps the channel. Subscribe to the channel, comment on the videos, share them on social media, and like them. I'm John Bowden, this is Rock History Book.